So I love this story from the book of Daniel because speaking truth to power that's sarcastic and satirical, yes please. King Nebuchadnezzar. King Nebuchadnezzar built a gold statue. It was 90 feet tall and 9 feet wide. He set it up in the Dora Valley in the province of Babylon. Then he commanded his chief administrators, ministers, governors, counselors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, and all provincial officials to assemble for the dedication of the statue that he had set up. So, the chief administrators, governors, the counselors, the treasurers, judges, the magistrates, and all provincial officials gathered for the dedication of the statue that he had set up. And they stood in front of the statue that he had set up. Then the herald proclaimed aloud, "All peoples, nations, and languages, this is what you must do. When you hear the sound of the horn, pipe, zither, lyre, harp, flute, and every kind of instrument, you must bow down and worship the gold statue that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. If you do not bow down and worship the gold statue that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up, you will immediately be thrown into a furnace of flaming fire." So, at the sound of the horn, pipe, zither, lyre, harp, flute, and every kind of instrument, everyone bowed down and worshiped the gold statue that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. At this time, certain Chaldeans came forward, seizing an opportunity to attack the Jews. They said to King Nebuchadnezzar, "Long live the king! Your Majesty, you gave an order that everyone who heard the sound of the horn, pipe, zither, lyre, harp, flute, and every kind of instrument must bow down and worship the gold statue that you have set up. Anyone who didn't bow down and worship the golden statue that you have set up would immediately be thrown into a furnace of flaming fire," right? Well, there are some Jews whom you appointed to administer the province of Babylon. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They don't worship your gods, and they don't bow down and worship the golden statue that you have set up. With this, Nebuchadnezzar became violently angry, and he ordered them to bring Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to him. He said to them, "Is it true? Meshach," he didn't speak Hebrew, whatever. "Is it true that you do not serve my gods and you do not bow down in front of the gold statue that I have set up? If you are now ready, when you hear the sound of the horn, pipe, zither, lyre, harp, flute, and every kind of instrument, you will bow down and worship the gold statue that I have set up. If you do not, you will immediately be thrown into a furnace of flaming fire. What God can save you from my power?" Huh? Well, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered the king, "We don't need to answer your question, Your Majesty. If our God, whom we serve, can rescue us from the furnace of flaming fire and from your power, O king, let God do it. But if God doesn't, know this for certain. We will never serve your gods, and we will never bow down and worship the gold statue that you have set up." Nebuchadnezzar became so angry, his face contorted with rage. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, whatever. He immediately ordered the furnace of flaming fire to be heated up 7 times its normal heat. He had the strongest men in his army bound Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, still wearing their clothes, and throw them into the furnace of flaming fire. Oh, now his order had been rash, and the furnace was heated to such an extreme that the flames' fires killed the very men who threw Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego into it. So the three men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell bound into the furnace of flaming fire. And the king said to his associates, "Didn't we throw 3 men into the fire?" And they answered, "Certainly, O king." And he said, "I see 4 men unbound, walking around, and they're not hurt. And the fourth has the appearance of a god." Then King Nebuchadnezzar went to the entrance of the furnace of flaming fire, and he said, "Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, come out, come here." And so Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego walked out of the fire. And the chief administrators, the ministers and governors and counselors and treasurers and judges and magistrates, they all gathered around to look at them. Their clothes were unharmed. Their hair wasn't singed. They didn't even smell like fire. Then Nebuchadnezzar said, "May the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be praised. God sent a messenger to rescue the servants who trusted God. They disobeyed a king's order. They sacrificed their lives because they wouldn't worship any god but God. I now issue a decree to every all peoples, nations, and languages. Whoever speaks disrespectfully about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego will be torn limb from limb and their house made a trash heap, because no other God can rescue like this." Then the king made Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego prosperous in the province of Babylon. I love this story. I think there are a couple different ways that I encountered it and tried to learn it. The first is the repetition. And so it might seem weird and hard at first, but it gets a lot easier, especially when you start thinking about it and going over and over again. The chief administrators, ministers, counselors, governors, treasurers, judges, magistrates. It's just got this same rhythm, and if you do it over and over again, you're going to hear that. And it's kind of like muscle memory for that. When you hear the sound of the horn, pipe, zither, lyre, harp, flute, and every kind of instrument. And then I really wanted to make a point that King Nebuchadnezzar can't even get their names right. He doesn't even care, right? They're so pathetic to him because they don't worship his statue or worship his gods or bow down to his statue. They're so insignificant. And I also think it's important for us to see that Nebuchadnezzar can't even get that close to the fire. He's sitting back. I kind of imagine King Herod in Jesus Christ Superstar. And the final thing is I just have fun with it. And so the herald proclaimed loudly, and I'm just really into that whole all peoples, nations, and languages. The whole scene has a sense of extravagance. It's got a sense of spectacle to it. So we may have heard this in Easter vigils, or when these long stories come around. Oftentimes we slug through it. But really, this is a fun story. And at the core of it, which is kind of why I chose to have it with a symbol of imperial dominance or American dominance in the background. This story must have been told and circulated through communities that had experienced exile and being on the margins, and they needed a story that kind of poked fun, that punched up, that spoke truth to a power that was trying to control their very lives, tell them when to kneel, when to stand, when to pledge allegiance. And this story is subversive to its core, and I think it needs to be told that way.